morning, Mr. Pretorius. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Chair.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair. Morning, Mr. Gordhan.
Yes.
Minister Gordhan, just before we adjourned yesterday, we were dealing with the evidence that you were giving regarding Denel. And at paragraph 72 of your statement, you say that in the week before you were eventually dismissed as Finance Minister, litigation was launched by Denel against the Minister of Finance and National Treasury. We don't need to go into any detail there. It will be dealt with in other evidence, but just to inform the Chair and the Commission, the application brought by Denel was to ask the court to confirm that permission or approval of the joint project had been given by Treasury. That was opposed by Treasury and the application was unsuccessful. Is that summary correct?
Good morning, yes. That's a fair summary, and that Mr. Fuzile actually, after my departure from Treasury, lodged the affidavit on behalf of Treasury.
If we may then move to the 9th of December 2015 and what occurred on that day. Would you tell the Commission what you recollect of the events of the 9th of December 2015, please?
Certainly. Chairperson, at that stage, I was still the Minister responsible for COCTA. I didn't attend the meeting of the 9th of December of Cabinet. I think I wasn't well on that day. And heard later that evening that Mr. Nene was called back by the President after the meeting, the Cabinet meeting, at which the two things that are relevant there. The one was that the expectation was, as I explained yesterday, that at approximately the final meeting of Cabinet in each year, the allocations to each department are approved, and that apparently, which I learned later, was deferred to the first meeting in 2016, which took place, if I remember, on the 13th of January 2016. And the second matter of consequence was the question of the approval of a cabinet memo in relation to the nuclear transaction. And upon his dismissal, we learn, as I think I indicate in that paragraph, that Mr. Van Rooyen, who until then I was familiar with as a member of the Finance Committee, the Standing Committee on Finance in Parliament, was appointed as the Finance Minister. And in paragraph 76, I indicate that on Thursday the 10th and Friday the 11th, the announcement of Mr. Nene's removal caused economic and financial market turmoil and a sharp depreciation of the value of the rand, which is an indicator of how the markets feel about both political and economic decisions that are being made in a country. And once markets closed for the weekend, there were ongoing fears that the situation would worsen when the markets reopened on Monday, the 14th of December. We then, in paragraph 77, look at the following 4 days, or rather the 4 days pursuant on the dismissal of Mr. Nene and his replacement by Mr. Van Rooyen, that this also resulted in a widespread public outcry. Civil society, organized labor, and organized business groups criticized the decision and demanded urgent corrective action by the then President Zuma.
Yes, before you go on, Minister, would you please turn to page 425 of the bundle? That's the first bundle, or bundle N1A. Statement by the former president, 3 paragraphs of which read, on the 9th of December, I announced the appointment of a new Minister of Finance, David van Rooyen. I have received many representations to reconsider my decision, and then lower down, I have appointed Mr. Pravin Gordhan, the current Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, as the new Minister of Finance. In your statement at paragraph 78 and following, you deal with your involvement at the time in relation to the appointment of yourself as Minister of Finance. Would you relate that narrative, please, to the Chair?
Thank you, Chairperson. What paragraph 78 indicates is that because of my familiarity, having been there from 2009 to 2014, in the Ministry of Finance with the financial issues and economic issues, clearly the turmoil that we saw on that Thursday and Friday, the 10th and the 11th, would worry both myself but others who would appreciate what financial turmoil meant and what issues like the sharp depreciation of the rand, amongst other things, could result in as well. And this concern I expressed to Ms. Kaunda, to whom I suggested that a team consisting of the Presidency, the Reserve Bank, the Treasury, and the private sector, even over the weekend if need be, find ways of communicating with investors the decision of the President and attempt in some way to calm the situation down. Precisely how, I don't know, but I thought communication per se and being in contact with key stakeholders, for example, investors, as I explained yesterday, in our bonds, would give them an appreciation, hopefully, that there's some wisdom underpinning the decision. And securing the well-being of the economy and the country and saving the South African population from the worst effects of some of that turmoil would be far more important than trying to ask the question and get answers to why the change, which in any event might have been speculative at that point in time. And all of this arose, as I indicated earlier on, in anticipation of the Monday morning, the 14th of December, that if the Thursday and Friday pattern, which I'll come back to in a moment, is to continue,